Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, depends on where you are around the world. I have the great pleasure to welcome you to this greening education session organized by the UNESCO Chair of Learning Science in the Learning Planet Institute. It looks like it's going to be a very interesting session because we have absolutely amazing guests. Before we start, I just wanted to quickly point out a few points in terms of logistics. The session is also streamed live on YouTube and recorded, so you could share the link afterwards. If you have any Q&A, any questions that you would like to ask at any time, please feel free to do it in the Q&A panel if possible. And then for any comments, links that you want to share, conversation that you want to have, you have the chat for that, and that's it can be as lively as possible. And you can start now by introducing yourself in the chat, giving your names or your affiliation, your organization, what you dream of, your country, whatever, anything that is personal and that you feel connected with the crowd. So I'm going to be moderating the session. My name is Gaël Mangui. I am the Executive Vice President of the Learning Planet Institute. As a bit of a story, I got interested in the topic of sustainability about 20 years ago, where there was not that many courses available, and so I've been learning the hard way where to find good resources on different disciplines and try to assemble the puzzle to make sense of that amazing complexity. Hopefully I managed some of that, and now I teach systemic approach to sustainability here at LPI and also learning mechanisms because I'm a neuroscientist. That's my former background, and I have authored a MOOC on what paths for a sustainable world that's trying to give an overview of the systemic approach of sustainability. Now, this said, you can imagine how I'm genuinely interested in that session, and I'm sure that we are all here to experience this session for the same purpose, that is understanding better what are the best approach to learn about sustainability and develop the key competencies that are required to make sense of this world and to take the right actions for this. When I was thinking about that session, I think there is one quote that can frame the subject of the session, and it's education of today is the world of tomorrow. I think everyone would agree with this. And that's essentially one of the key missions of UNESCO, and we can understand why this is so important to take care of our youth. There is one conundrum, one question which is not that easy, that is greening education, how green you want that education to be. I'm not here to answer, I'm just here to give you a spectrum. Some people think that greening education is about putting a little bit of learning about sustainability within the curriculum. Let's say, let's learn about climate change and then everything else keep exactly the same. But over the last 20 years, there's been a shift between greening a little bit to greening a lot, and in fact transform fundamentally the way we approach education, so that it's not only about getting the knowledge of what is happening to the world, but it's also developing the key competencies that are required for us collectively to tackle those challenges. So at LPI, we are more on the second, at the end of the spectrum, and we summarize this by saying that we should learn how to take care of oneself, others, and the planet, because it's about living together, it's about trying to solve complex challenges together. So this is to give you a little bit of background and to discuss this very important topic and to learn about successful programs, models, to get inspired. We have really the privilege to learn from super distinguished guests today. Wang Jungbyun, she's the team leader on Greening Education Partnership at UNESCO. She works in the session of Education for Sustainable Development, and so she will cast the scene for us about the situation in the world. Then we have Nikita Gidwani from Tanzania. She works as a college guidance counselor and CS coordinator. And Nikita, I share your inspiration, which I found the quote I like. Your inspiration stems from the belief that teachers create good human beings. I love that quote so much. Eric Ghilardi, you're professor of climate science and you're president of the Office of Climate Education. And so you're working night and day to try to get people understand this absolutely paramount issue. Brian McGrath, you're a former president of Dublin City University and now you're senior advisor to the president of Arizona State University. And you have been also working tirelessly to change fundamentally the university. And Runa Khan, founder and executive director of Friendship. Runa and her NGO are just amazing, and I can't wait to hear all of you presenting. So just to finish, give you the rule of the show for this morning, they are, for this session, they are very simple. Each speaker will present about 5 minutes in 2 rounds. The first round will be about presenting inspiring examples, and from K-12 to universities to lifelong learning, we're going to have a whole spectrum of what is already happening. And then the second round will be more on sharing personal insight of what is required to scale and where are the problems. So what are our hopes for the future, but also how can we do better and faster, what are the scalable initiatives, etc. So it's more to start the conversation, really. So we will have at least 20-30 minutes at the end to have a round of questions with the audience, and I hope that this will be as lively as possible. So again, please feel free to add your comments, add links, add your questions in the chat, questions preferably in the Q&A panel. And this is it for me. I think we all have a clear understanding of how we're going to play that game. So without further ado, I would love to invite one. If you can take the floor, it is all yours.
Thank you very much, Gail, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. So as introduced, my name is Wan Jungbian. Please call me Wan, and I work in the secretariat of this Greening Education Partnership, which works on climate and education nexus here at UNESCO. So I would like to share my screen now just to have some background slides to prompt this 5-minute intervention. So indeed, I mean, this is really an exciting moment today to talk about this issue of greening education on the day, this important day of International Day of Education. And as many of you know, this climate and education, the role of education to tackle climate crisis has been very much on the agenda for many policymakers and practitioners across the world, especially since the COP26 in UK in Glasgow. So around those periods, this Greening Education Partnership was born, and now we are at the point of discussing what are the next steps to move forward with this partnership. So for the first 5 minutes of my intervention, I would like to just spotlight and recap on some of the achievements that we've had in the partnership. So the objective of this partnership was to really bring together better coordination, stronger collaboration, better knowledge management and advocacy to create that sense of synergy and collaboration and a stronger implementation at country level to promote education for climate change. And this really comes from the understanding that so far we've had these islands of good practices across many parts of the world. But now, in order to make that transformative change, as Gael was mentioning earlier, we cannot lose any more of time. We need to work together, and we need to make sure that we are having the same language, same common goal, and we strive to create synergies within the limited resources that everybody has. So with that urgency, the sense of urgency, this call for having a global partnership to bring together everybody working around this field, whether it's coming from all sectors of policies, practitioners, teachers, private sector, young people, all of them together to work towards this common goal was called upon at the UN Transforming Education Summit in 2022. So building around this goal, there was this 4 pillars of transformative education that was described and defined with the group. Now, greening schools to make sure that the schools are transformative learning environments, greening curriculum so that our teaching and learning is transformed to meet the challenge, greening teacher training and education systems capacities So not only are the teachers and educators prepared, but also our education systems, including the budget, the financing of climate education, but also the policies and education plans and the whole sector's readiness to tackle climate change to be improved. And finally, greening communities to strengthen community resilience through lifelong learning, as I'm hoping that today at this session we'll be hearing more from other speakers from amazing examples. So around these four areas of work, now we have gathered over the past course of 1 year over 82 member states, so governments who have signed up from many ministries. So this is not only ministries of education, but also ministries of environment, climate, finance, labor sometimes. So it really is a very intergovernmental approach that we were able to bring together. And more than 1,100 organizations and partners, and many of which are here today joining. So there's that sense of community built. And at the time of COP28 in Dubai, we were able to compile 43 countries' endorsement of this education and climate declaration to strengthen this political commitment. So just recapping our journey together since the UN Transforming Education Summit, this is a short diagram to capture that whole process. But just to say that early part of 2022, we had this conversation about how can we make this kind of partnership. And I remember at COP27, where we had the first meeting to brainstorm on this, it was a very small room of about 20 people sitting together from about 11 organizations, dreaming about this kind of partnership. And then it evolved into discussion about the concrete aspects of the governance, including the terms of reference, the four working groups, one of which is, of course, led by Eric, who is going to speak afterwards by OCE, advisory group, and member states representatives. So now in this advisory group of the Greening Education Partnership, the current and future presidencies of COP are sitting as the member state representatives, as well as the United Kingdom as the co-host of the launch of the partnership. And now in 2023-24, we have the work plans of these four areas. And the first annual meeting of the Greening Education Partnership was held at COP28. So around this, at the same time, there was various activities going on. And in particular, I would like to just point out a couple of things here, which is to define the greening curriculum guidance and school quality standards through 2 rounds of consultations and 9 country pilots, and also a series of webinars focusing on green schools. What does it mean to schools? How do we do this? Together with UNFCCC, this has been running to bring together different stakeholders on board. So I think towards after this journey of 2022-23, we were able to reach collectively the sense of collaboration or platform for collaboration at least. Now, how do we use this collaboration platform is the next question. The sense of community and stronger ownership. So certainly I would like to just emphasize here that it's not UNESCO's Greening Education Partnership, but it's everybody's Greening Education Partnership. So this sense of ownership, co-ownership is very much important for us to make sure that we all contribute to the same pot of work that we collaborate together. And finally, just looking at the key activities that are going on around these 4 pillars, in the school greening schools team, the Green School Quality Standard is being developed. So you can see in this QR code the latest draft, and we are looking for your inputs right now to improve this so that we can have it published by summer this year. And this would be the basis, our common language to build upon, to have that common defined target of greening 50% of world schools by 2030. And when we say schools, of course, it's more the formal school system, but also we would like to define this with non-formal education systems and institutions as well. So please have a look at this draft and share your thoughts on what is missing, what needs to be improved, how can we make this further to reach this common goal. And secondly, on the greening curriculum guidance, which is led by, of course, Eric in OCE, all countries' curriculum greened by 2030. And here we are developing the greening curriculum guidance, which defines learning objectives for areas of environment, social, and economic aspects of climate change and how that can be addressed from the age group of 5-year-olds to 18 plus around the cognitive, social, emotional, and behavioral learning domains. So please do also have a look at this graph. It's open for consultation right now, and we would love to have your views on what can be strengthened and done further. And then finally, in the other two pillars, there's discussion among the members led by Education International and UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning on developing greening teacher training guidance. So how do we teach the teachers about climate change, and also greening communities guidance on how does it mean for lifelong learning and skills development and young people's engagement to tackle climate change. So this is all collective work that we're trying to do together at the moment, and we look forward to this continued collaboration this year in this exciting 2024. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Juan. Thank you for casting the scene and providing the institutional landscape so that we can see better that every country is trying hard to get there. And thank you also for enlarging, and it's not only about a school or a curriculum, it's also about teacher training, it's about communities, it's everything as a whole. So I think it's good, Nikita, if you can show us, now that we have been on a super stratospheric level with how this can be actually implemented on the ground and provide example from what you're doing in Tanzania. You have the floor.
Absolutely, yes. Well, I would like to start with unakuwa na hekima na umri, which means you grow wiser with age. While I say, likewise, when I relocated here in Tanzania, I saw there are no community parks, and I was very shocked to notice this. But gradually, I got a chance to meet Didier, and he started explaining and mentoring my students about green education, about the importance of including climate education in the normal curriculum. When we started with our climate education journey, we started with having a microforest. Imagine having 1,000 square feet of forest where 35 different species of plants, fruits, and flowers are growing, and more than 100 saplings coexisting together. We're creating a live laboratory for students to go and learn directly in the live laboratory for students to go and learn directly in the campus where the entire school community is a part of. While we started working around a microforest, we tried supporting the project as it involves a lot of finance and funding.
Recording stopped.
To create a soil factory. When we started working for Soil Factory and to have our own manure producing factory in the school, we failed 3 times. Well, it did dampen the spirit of a lot of students and also me as an educator, but we have not yet given up. We are still working on it, and we are learning from our mistakes and experiments to continue this journey. Our journey of climate education is not restricted to microforest or soil factory. We take pride in sharing that we are the only campus that does not allow one-time plastic use inside the school campus. Every teacher, every student ensures to carry water bottles that can be reused and refilled. Apart from smaller practices like this, currently we have our eco leaders who are creating to learn recycling of paper so that the same paper can be reused among the school body. Yes, we do not allow our curriculums to include sustainability into them, but we are trying to build a curriculum around so that every subject partakes in greener education. So I take pride in sharing. We are promoting the concept. We are trying to introduce topics inside the classrooms that are not restricting inside the 4 walls, but allowing our students to go on field schools, understand the biodiversity, take use of the indigenous wisdom that is available from the people, from the community, make them responsible, engage them, learn from them so that we are catering to the context that we belong to, and not teach them something that they might not be able to even relate to. And that's how we are promoting our education journey here in Tanzania. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikita. So now it's we are down to earth, literally, so that we can see how in your school you can not only promote concepts to understand biodiversity and such, but also engage students, and importantly through also small practices so that they can see in their daily life how to change things. Eric, I think given the message of Juan and the experience of Nikita, I would like to ask you how is it possible to insert into a curriculum on a large scale things that are not so easy to understand on a very local environment, such as a school, such as climate, the science of climate, things that are very abstract and very difficult to understand. So please, over to you.
Thank you, Gail, and hello, everybody. So yes, I mean, we've seen the amazing UNESCO momentum that one was describing. Then there's those really local actions that Nikita just described. So how do we connect those? And I think this is really one of the big challenges we're all facing. Let me share, if I can share. Let me see. No, I can't. Okay. Right. So that's fine. I can describe. So a phrase I really like from the Assistant Director General for Education at UNESCO is Stefania Giannini, and she says that education is the most transformational climate adaptation action. And I think this is really one of the key things that all of us educators and climate scientists have to carry around. There's a lot of momentum on climate, and education is a key aspect. Now, as you were seeing, Gael, and this was also mentioned by Juan, there are a number of challenges for quality climate change education. First, it's not present in the curricula. Then we need pedagogical resources and professional development for teachers, and they are both on the same quality on the science and the pedagogy. It means dealing with complexity, societally charged topics, and it's charged with controversy and emotions in many cases. Many education systems are not yet adequate to deal with the multidisciplinarity of what it requires. There are a number of dimensions. It's not just science or biology, etc. And also engaging in active pedagogies or pedagogies that help bring those science topics are not always a priority. And also, if we look at how the public funding is going into this area, most of the public funding is going into public outreach on climate awareness, and not enough in the actual formal education system, which holds that transformative power. So it is in this context that we created the DOC, the Office for Climate Education, in the wake of the Paris Agreement. So we work closely with the IPCC, and basically adapting the IPCC reports for the teachers and for the classroom. DOC became a center of the auspices of UNESCO a few years back, aligning with the missions of the team that Juan is representing here. And through that, even though it's a small team, still 12 people at OC, but growing, we are co-coordinator of that Pillar 2 that Juan was mentioning on curriculum and resources. So I think the key and really the mission of OC is to provide that capacity building for quality climate change education. And this happens in two ways. One is to develop a portfolio of resources. So that means adapting the IPCC report for the classroom, doing summary for teachers, pedagogical guidebooks, multimedia animations, the whole ecosystem for each IPCC report. We're working for the teachers of the primary and secondary schools in Global South, but also more and more in the North, because every country needs that. It's amazing how the need is huge. Alongside this production of pedagogical resources, we know it's not enough, even though they're available in different languages, freely available to the teachers. We need a professional development, absolutely key, and the networks of practice. Otherwise, teachers can feel a bit lonely in this topic. So it's really this portfolio of resources, professional development, and communities of practice is essential to scale, to really go at the scale level. But if those three actions are not backed by the education system locally, it won't scale. And one of the role of DOC is to be that connective tissue between that portfolio and the local education systems. So it means empowering the many NGOs, local actors, even all the way to Ministry of Education, to understanding the different challenges and the different dimensions of climate change education, and adapting them to the local education systems. All education systems are different locally, so for them to be relevant and to scale, that adaptation is so important. It takes time, it takes many years. And for example, one key project we have is in Latin America. We started in Mexico and Colombia many years ago, and now only now we're seeing the large impact that Colombia is changing its curricula. Thousands of teachers and teacher trainers now are adhering to a common professional development framework, and it's really starting to scale, seeing in the classrooms really a culture that is being developed around those topics. So it's really investing in the long term, empowering the local actors, adapting to the local context is so important. So I think, yeah, maybe to start a bit the discussion we'll have later, what the challenges and what is guiding or guiding principles, how we operate at OC is clearly the scientific foundation is key. There are many amazing pedagogical activities, but the science foundation is a bit shaky. And this is really first about science education. Those environmental issues are first about science, but of course they're not restricted to science. Interdisciplinarity is essential to have a broad view, a systemic view, connect with the other system SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Think about humanities, having a positive view, engaging the students, and that requires active pedagogies, as we discussed before, but also this dimension of cooperation, accessibility, relevance, to have that long-term impact in legacies is absolutely essential. And I really like to me, climate literacy is that phrase that is a mix of different people have been coining, that is really developing critical mind, hopeful heart, and able hand. It's really those three dimensions that are so important to develop the citizens of tomorrow. So I'll stop here for now, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Eric, for giving us an overview of what the OEC is doing and also the challenges that you are proposing. So that's, with the three of you, that's giving us an overview of what is currently happening at the K-12 level. And Brian, you have the delicate task to explain to us that university is also moving ahead. Brian,
yes,
over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And what I have to say will build on what other colleagues have said already. So bonjour, everybody. Good morning. I'm delighted to participate in this wonderful event and excited to tell you about the work we've been doing at Arizona State University that addresses the greening of higher education, not just at ASU, but worldwide. But I don't think anybody here can be in any doubt that we are facing an existential planetary crisis. You know, whether it's breaching 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries, or the state of the Earth's tipping elements, such as the Antarctic ice sheet, or the extreme temperatures and weather events, it's clear that the Earth is now moving outside of the safe operating space for humanity. So it's abundantly clear that we urgently need interventions and transformations that can act locally, but can be scaled globally and at speed. So the 3 key words for us are urgency, scaling, and speed. So how do we advance such transformational change? Well, what we are proposing at ASU is that universities can, or indeed must, become global catalysts for urgent societal transformation and societal mobilization. And why do we say this? Because we believe universities are uniquely positioned, number one, to inspire, inform, and empower the next generation of leaders and change makers. They're uniquely positioned to create knowledge and drive innovation that can be scaled at sufficient speed to make the necessary and urgent transformation. And they're uniquely positioned to influence governments and broader society through thought leadership and by example in terms of how they behave. Uniquely, universities can unite governments, industry, and civil society to create the desired quadruple helix of innovation. So that's the vision. But in order to make this happen on a global scale, we've been busy at the University Design Institute at Arizona State University, and we've developed an important offering for higher education called the University Design Clinics for Planetary Health. The function of these clinics is to assist universities and university clusters, and most significantly, national higher education systems, to transform themselves so that they can have a major focus and a major impact on planetary health. You'll note I use the term planetary health rather than sustainability. And I think that is a better language because I think society may not engage easily with the words of sustainability. And planetary health is based on the understanding that human health and human civilization depends on flourishing natural systems and the wise stewardship of those natural systems, and understanding the inextricable link between people and their planet and their environment. So these clinics will be offered globally and will lead to large numbers of universities worldwide advancing innovations at speed. To give you some more detail, we've identified 7 core pillars of activity in universities that enable us to provide a whole of university framework to capture the totality of a university's contribution. Let me give you quickly the 7 pillars. One is obvious, the curriculum, teaching and learning. It's about infusing our curriculum with sustainability principles, green skills, and relevant Indigenous knowledge and wisdom. Reform of the curriculum is about fostering the talent the world needs, developing planetisms, planetary stewards, planetary health entrepreneurs, informed and responsible global citizens. And that includes lifelong learning enabled by digital platforms. In research and innovation, number 2, but creating and translating the necessary knowledge to tackle our challenges. And as somebody else said, it's not just STEM, it is about the humanities, behavioral science, and so on. Number 3, thought leadership. This is about universities engaging effectively with governments, local and national, to support evidence-based policy making, as well as influencing societal behavior. Number 4 is about empowering students. We need to amplify youth voices. We need to harness their wealth of ideas and enable them to translate their energy and motivations into action. Number 5 is about sustainable campus operations. Most universities are like small or mid-sized towns. Across all their operations and practices, universities need to be exemplars in their regions in terms of sustainability. And finally, it's about community and global engagement. Universities need to effectively engage with civil society, industry, and other community partners, but also engage especially across the global north, global south divide. So this is all about mobilization of the unique assets of universities. And if you think there are over 30,000 post-secondary institutions worldwide, over 250 million students, imagine mobilizing all of these in an urgent fashion to tackle the issues that we're facing. Just imagine those thousands and thousands of universities tackling this. So in summary, we have developed a means of unleashing and mobilizing the unique power of talent, knowledge creation, innovation, thought leadership, and engagement in universities to address the planetary crisis. This is about real action. Governments across the world are waking up to this, and this will be of direct benefit to them. And I look forward to telling you a little bit more about this, including some very inspiring examples when I come back again to address the second part of this presentation. Thank you, everybody.
Well, thanks very much, Brian. So that gives us now almost the full spectrum from the K-12 to the university. But then there is one thing that is clearly missing, and then one added that at the presentation at the beginning, which is how do we green? What is the piece regarding the communities, right? Because sometimes the informal learning is much more important than formal learning. And so, Runa, I would like to give you the floor to tell us a little bit what you've been doing in Bangladesh and elsewhere. And I don't know which example you're going to pick because you go basically from the very beginning to the very end of a human being learning journey. Thank you very much, Runa. You are the floor.
Thank you very much.
You're on mute, Runa.
Is this okay now? Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, yeah, it was. Sorry about that. So thank you very much for this introduction because it kind of gives a bit of a holistic picture of the way we work, which is holistically, but also keeping in mind, which is today, the conference that we're having, it's about greening. It's about environment. And my whole 22 years of my life has been geared towards how does this synergy work between, as you said, planetary health. Brian, what you said was a very nice word. Planetary health, human health, and ensuring that this stays. So let's talk about the millions who are in extreme setting, and especially in the area that friendship works in. So we work in some of the most climate impacted regions of the world, all right, where climate migration is daily, literally. I mean, you have homes, schools, environment where which are migrating all the time. People are migrating, homes are breaking, erosion happening, and in spite of being 7th on the IPCC list, demographically we are in the front line. So in this kind of a context where a child is moving all the time, people are moving all the time, I started what we thought of was creating a platform for these millions of people, not hundreds of thousands, but millions of people, to create a platform from which they can scale up. Now, in that journey of scaling up, in which they can have a better economic standing, in that journey, we had to take into consideration number one prerequisite, the environment. And because of the climate, the environment, and the geography, everything else needed to follow that, because that was not going to follow any other systems or patterns or any delivery tools. And so imagine an island which is breaking off every few months and people are migrating. How do you have schools there? You don't have teachers. You have to teach them everything. All right. So K-12 came later. It was just even learning to read and write. We had to take into consideration the environment. One, teachers were just people of the community we had to train. And we could not have a formal school. We had to have a kind of a school which could be moved, mobile. And here we come to children, how do we ensure that the child feels settled, feels that they're carrying something back with them and the home is lost, and the dependability is the schooling system. So we carry the whole school literally region to region. We had about 70 schools, now we've got 48, because we've scaled them up to the K-12 level, which needed to be linked to of course the computer system and internet, and so we have pre-recorded classes, etc. But to ensure that the environment stays content, what we had to do was embed in their education system not only the government schooling, but also the environmental study, which was, they did not even have much plastic. So it was not cleanliness only. It was not plastic collection. It was their oneness with nature, which indigenous knowledge always provides for. But the importance of particular kind of agriculture, particular kind of plantations, importance of having hygiene and cleanliness, all this needed to be embedded. And this could come provided you could teach them what I call ethical and values of life. So the study of human, what you are as a human, the humane studies, which includes tolerance, acceptance, respect for everything around you, after that came the environmental importance, and then came the studies. So the whole study got linked to a lifestyle. And from there, we have now these children who had not even, there are millions, okay, who have not even kind of crossed over to the mainland, are today being represented at COP, or they're going to the EU Parliament. How did this transformation come about when the whole island with 2,000 people could not even read and write? This is an integration. John, what you said about integration, I have to tell you that integration is not only with organizations coming together, but internal organizations. For example, we had such a fight with UNICEF, because they wanted to paint the schools. We have 500 schools in the Rohingya camp. They wanted to paint them red. And I said, okay, write a letter to me saying that I'm an environmental activist. They know that. And they still want the schools to be painted red. and then they stopped. I could have my natural bamboo colors, you know? So it's a kind of a, you're very right. We need to work together, even amongst the UN organizations themselves. Only then you can have the strength to reach out to the others. The university, Brian's, which you said, it's the same. You know, it's so important to be able to make people around you understand the importance that greening is not only a particular thing, it's a way of life which needs to be imbued. And we have the same problem with the government schools, same problem in carrying this forward. But if these children in these areas can do that, you know, can represent people at COP who can't even, you know, children whose parents and everyone around can't read and write, and they can, I am sure there is hope that the importance of this is not only taken as green, but as taken far more holistically as a part of a lifestyle of life. And so this is what we do. And yes, try to integrate this in the way we work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Runa, for this inspiring and very short presentation, given everything that you would have to say. Thank you very much. Now we have finished the first round, so I suggest, before going to the second, because otherwise everyone get bored, if you want to be a bit lively, Runa, you pointed to one, and Brian and maybe other participants wants to react as well on others' presentations. So if you want shortly to provide some comments and some additional information, feel free to do it for 1 minute or two. And there is also a few questions. I'm going to select the ones that are relevant for that round before we go into the next one. I don't know if any of you would like to. Yeah. No, there is no.
Maybe if I just quickly react to Runa's comment earlier. Indeed, I mean, even among UN agencies, it's so much important that instead of us doing individual things with our limited resources in particular areas, it's really important to create that synergy, because we simply don't have the time to lose. So certainly with the Greening Education Partnership, I'm very happy to share we have around 14 UN agencies involved. Whoever are working on anything to do with climate and education are coming together indeed to create that synergy. So hope this works out in the coming years.
I am sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Brian, please.
Yes, just to respond to both Juan and Runa. First of all, Runa, I very much embrace the idea that greening has to become a way of life. In fact, greening has to become a culture. It's so much part of everything we do. And we either embrace it or it'll happen to us. And it's much better if we embrace it. The second point, and really this is more for Juan and Runa, I think we need to look at the education system as a continuum. Really should not be looking at different parts of it separately. We need the graduates that are going to come out in the next couple of years from universities to be tackling this and become leaders, but it needs to happen continuously all along the education continuum, from primary, secondary, third level, and lifelong learning, as has been mentioned. And we'd be very happy to collaborate with the colleagues on this call in terms of addressing that, so that it becomes a continuous process.
Thank you, Brian. Eric, you wanted to add as well?
Yes, so I think the point I wanted to make, and I join really what was said about a new way of life and thinking, and I think one of the key things we're seeing is the importance of narratives. And today, the usual narratives the learners are faced with is doom and gloom. A lot of it is doom and gloom. And even though you may take, like Brian started his intervention listing, all things that may seem to be very worrying, and this we can discuss, but there's more and more evidence that if you increase the level of anxiety, you need a bit of anxiety to get into the process of understanding there's something we have to take care of. We shouldn't wait too long. But if you continue on the anxiety, then you reach what is now eco-anxiety for many youth, and you limit action. So as educators, we have now to really think about how to fine tune, and something with experimenting with quite a lot of success is the narratives, is to engage the youth in imagining a positive future that is not doom and gloom, because it's, you know, it's not doom and gloom. It's a challenge we have. It's a big challenge, but it's not the end of the world. It may be the end of some kind of our organization, collective organization. So I just wanted to stress this part, because I think that's really at the heart of many of the challenges we are facing.
Well, thank you very much, Eric, because that's a main, that's of course the elephant in the room. And just to add on that, maybe some of you know the work about Leila Benoit, she's a psychologist, pedopsychologist working with kids, and she's specialized on eco-anxiety at Yale University. And so what Leila has found is that what is the most efficient way to prevent or to mitigate eco-anxiety is actually to get the kids and the students involved into projects that are meaningful collectively. Right, and there's two dimensions in this: is to take action, but to take action in a collective, because when you're alone, it's you know, you can abandon, you can be. So I think that's key, and that also interesting to see how science instructs us something that is. We all have this intuition, and we are all practicing this in our universities, trying to get, or schools, trying to get the community to work on the problems, because that is a way to actually move forward. Nikita, you also raise your hands, so I think it's.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Eric said, that, you know, if we're going to approach this as by instilling fear inside our students, we are not reaching anywhere. In fact, the approach should be to empower them so that they have a better future. Yes, we come from a generation that has been abusing the resources, but we cannot let their generation do the same. So we should not be instilling fear in them that, you know, that the world is going to come to an end. No, we will find ways and solutions that, yes, you will have a greener planet to live in. So that's what I just wanted to add to what Eric said.
Brilliant. Brilliant. On the kids and the students and on the youth in general, I want to pick two questions from Michael Winter, one for Juan and the other one for Brian, but it's essentially the same. So one, you already answered him in the Q&A, but I think it's important for the audience so that we get that in the landscape, because that's absolutely central, is how do we actually work with youth? Not only hear them, you know, not only but have them engaged, because it's directly linked to what we were saying before. And so there is a question about how the greening education partnership can take into account the voice of the youth, but which we can even go further. So how can we co-design with youth? And the same for you, Brian. So the question is around how global student organizations can use your example to bring change to their institutions. So I think there is this question about what is it that we can do to get the youth involved, not only to learn how to do things, but to actually redesign the whole system so that it fits the purpose of their own health and the planetary health.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Michael, for that question. Very important point. So indeed, what we are discussing right now, the two drafts that I've shared, are really built upon the young people's demands. And I've shared in the chat the youth demand for quality climate education publication, which we launched at COP27 in Egypt, which talks about their experience in school, what they have learned, and what they feel is needed further. So very much they are looking at much more holistic vision of climate education and greening education than what is understood by policymakers today. And that is the fundamental basis of these two Green School Quality Standard and curriculum guidance we are developing today. So it's a co-development process. We are co-creating with young people. And actually right after this call, we are having a meeting with the young people who are involved in that youth demand to review the current draft in depth and to talk about whether it meets their ambitions or not. So this kind of co-creation process is going on for these two products. And within the partnership, there's a network of networks among youth groups. So over 230 youth-led organizations or youth-involved organizations are involved in the partnership. And they are meeting now on regular basis. And another one is coming up in February, where they will discuss what they want to do within this partnership, how they want to amplify their voices. So if you have, or if you are involved in youth-led groups, and want to join this kind of conversation, which already built on strong youth movement, please join the partnership, and we'll be happy to collaborate together to connect dots. Thank you.
If I may add something, I'm sorry, somehow my hand up is not showing. We have a inter-school connectivity program, which we have started with the schools in France, where we get people from, absolutely in remote areas, in these chore schools, to connect with schools in France, in Luxembourg, Switzerland, Cambodia, and exchanges are being made. And this has created an incredible jump in understanding of ecosystems of each other. When children speak to each other, there is a kind of a cross-borderal learning which does not have any judgment calls on it, that you have done this or we are suffering. It's not that. It is really, really trying to understand each other's environments. And this has kind of really snowballed, and Learning Planet is also part of this, and we are very, very happy to have them. And I don't know, perhaps we could also link this as one of the practices which are happening. It was quoted in the Finnish school to the president as being one of the best practices of environmental learning in 2022, I think. We could do that.
Thank you very much, Runa. For the speakers and for the audience, I'm changing the strategy because I see it's already 34 minutes to go, and there is like 10 questions pending, and the conversation is quite lively. And we are touching upon things that we would need to scale and what are the problems anyway during the conversation. So what I suggest is that we take 10 more minutes to do this, or a bit more, to try to exhaust the questions and try to see new, more questions, and then we keep the last few minutes to see whether, if there is any item that you wanted to say that we have not covered, then you can bring it forward. Is that fair? Is that okay? Yeah. So because I see, so there's all kind of questions which are very interesting. I have so Eric, I have one for you. Actually, it's a double question. There is one from the floor that says, are you based on science? I don't know if you can read the Q&A, but it's so question for it, are the OC used findings of research to create the educational programs for teachers training in OCE? So you covered that, but maybe you want to explain a little bit how you are doing it. And my additional question for you and for the panel is, that's Office for Climate Education. That's not Office for Planetary Health. So to me, one of the key subjects is climate is, of course, of paramount importance, but it's just one aspect of sustainability, and it's certainly not the alpha and the omega. So how do we integrate this into a curriculum so that we fundamentally change education? So Eric, one easy question and a more complex one.
Thank you, Gail, and thank you all for this question. So yes, of course, science is has to be at the base, but clearly education is not limited to science. And I think also there are several reasons why science have to be at the base. And it can be climate science, can be science about other topics like biodiversity, or there's diversity, of course. But first, learning about science, it is about a scientific problem. The science can tell us what's going on, but also learning about science is learning about critical mind, is learning about many skills that you can apply to many other, these competencies that will develop really citizens. So I think it's important that it's a way, in a way, maybe another way of saying it, and that joins up with your second question. Science education is in many countries is difficult at the moment. It's losing ground. We see the level of scientific competencies dropping in some countries, and that's worrying. And I think one way to bring back meaning and appetence for this is through the environmental challenges, because for many youth, that's really defining moments of their life. And if we can tell them, well, actually, the problem you're interested in is not just political; it starts with the science. So it's a way of bringing, well-being and also meaning in the classroom. I strongly believe that, and that's something we're trying to do. Now, yes, we thought about when we created the OCE. Well, first, climate is an interesting entry point, and I call it an entry point. It's not an end in itself. Again, we have to have that wide vision. It's 17 Sustainable Development Goals. They're all as important in limiting human sufferings in the next decades. To me, it's hard to say that one is more urgent than the other, and this is the climate scientist speaking to you. And so that broad vision is important. And what we saw, I mean, ESD, so Education for Sustainable Development, has been in school for many decades. But most of the time, if you look carefully, what is done is very, like recycling or making a little garden. The systemic view, the link with the how we live together, what are the issues, is not there. So we believe this was this entry to choosing, and this is also what the Greening Education Partnership is doing, starting with the science, the broad view right away, and then it's a door to connecting with all the other topics. I think that broad view is essential to the narratives we're talking about, to limit anxiety, and also to be able for the learners to project themselves positively, see all the levers that they have, and because they are faced with many people providing narrow views of the future, wherever they come from, NGOs, political parties, scientists, and developing that wide view and understanding, we think should be based first on the science. And one way of limiting the eco-anxiety that you were describing, Gail, is of course the action, but also the understanding. Anxiety starts when you don't understand. When you start understanding, also an important aspect we're promoting the OCE pedagogical guides that you can find is how to deal with emotions in the classroom. Many teachers are faced with this, and allowing the children to express their emotions. And then, of course, as you were saying, the project based and the collective action. So, yeah, this is really quickly the importance of science, and also the climate entry point is a more, I think, a more tractable way, and also strategically, because there's so much momentum around climate in the international community and in funding, I think the climate entry point is a good one to bring all this momentum into education.
Thank you, Eric. Does anyone want to add something on that one, or we move to the next topic? 1, 2, 3. Next topic. So since you're saying that there is a lot of funding around climate, I wish you were right. Then we have two questions. Then, well, you asked for it. So then there is two questions around exactly that point. The first one is there's a lot of people who work or want to work on this issue, but no employment opportunities are available. Do you have a plan for a fund or something? So it's not for you to have a plan, but maybe you have views on how we can get some funding and traction to get there. So that's a question for the 5 of you. And there is another one that is also dealing with, we have so many questions that I'm trying to, but maybe we can start with that one and hopefully it will answer the other one that I'm trying to get. Anyone has an idea on where to get the funding and or teach the teachers so that we can get more people involved?
Just to clarify what I was saying on the funding, there is the education has been always underfunded historically in many countries. Not all countries, but many countries. The momentum around funding on climate, which is, I completely agree with you, is not enough. There's a huge momentum. There's a lot going on. And if and I'm sure Juan can describe that as well, because there's that fund being set up. One strategy is really to bring to the policymakers that are saying, well, we have to deal with climate change. That education is a key aspect, and some of that effort and funding should come to education.
Right. I found the second question, which is related. How sustainable is this greening education in sub-Saharan Africa? Because there may be need for continuous funding. There is. So I don't know, maybe this is a question more for Juan from a technical aspect. If there is anything in the pipeline for trying to find funds to help this, maybe you can take that one. And maybe Runa, you can also share your experience or how you get the funds to do what you're doing at several country scale.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. So indeed, I've just shared in the chat the list of countries that have joined the Greening Education Partnership. So these are governments who have at least shown their level of interest and commitment to work on this agenda in the next years. So as you can see in Sub-Saharan Africa and across the world, there's quite a large amount of interest going on. And in terms of financing of climate education in general, there are different avenues of funding that are available, whether it's through climate funds or education funds and international development aids that are going from individual countries bilaterally, and also private and philanthropy funds that are available. And at UN agencies, at the moment in the Greening Education Partnership, as Eric mentioned, we are also exploring this possibility of creating a multilateral fund that is focused around one UN pot, creation of one UN pot to follow and fund greening education. And in this regard, also, there was a good news announced at COP28, where Green Climate Fund and Global Partnership for Education and Save the Children are launching a new initiative for $70 million to support countries on climate education in the coming years. And also, UNESCO and Save the Children are executing the Green Global Partnership for Education project in 20 countries for $15 million, supporting the transformation of their education systems into climate smart education systems. So these types of programs, and many of them are in Sub-Saharan Africa. For example, I'm traveling to South Sudan at the end of this week to support. So there are a lot of activities going on directly, bilaterally with countries. But indeed now what is important is that these presences in each country, instead of everybody doing their little projects and in their silos, we need to know who's present and doing what in what goal in each country, so that we can connect the dots and connect and create that much needed synergy, because no one will ever come with enough money to solve all problems on one go. So we need to really connect the dots, and I think that's what this partnership is trying to do: map out who's where and try to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan.
Thank you.
Runa?
One that's really wonderful. You the whole thing together, and I just want to come in with a few things that, when one is working in a kind of a environment where the environment or the climate is really fundamentally what needs to be reached at, be it in education, be it in health, be it for mitigation, adaptation, innovation, all the different fronts today, be it even the CSRs and, even companies, we can tap into that. And I think if the work is good, if the work is solid, people are just frightened of not giving money because of greenwashing, which is really becoming, what happened to Ryanair or things like that, we need to be very, very careful. For example, our forestry program, mangrove reforestation program, we of course access the climate funds from different countries. We also access private funds, individual funds, livelihood funds, protection funds, because all these together create a holistic model for the forestry projects. So in education, it can also be education with climate. Reaching out to foundations, and people are all wanting to be part of this climate environment funds today. And I think the availability of fund, I agree with Eric, is a lot more and bigger than what it was. But again, identifying proper projects, ensuring that money is not going only into pilotitis, which scares people. Everybody wants to make a pilot on climate something. We need to do it a bit more strongly, and putting together something which one said, platforms and where and who can be linked. I think platforms like this, Yon, these can be shared with everyone who's on looking for climate funds. And of course, at the end of the day, people will give it to that one individual or that one organization or some organizations which they trust in. But I think even if we know who is doing what, would be a great platform to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Runa. Feel free to raise your hands, the speakers, if you want to bounce on any other topics. I continue with the questions. I think there is one which is quite interesting here. Could you also say a few words on intergenerational learning? I have another one which is a bit heavier on how to fundamentally change the system, but that one is quite interesting. Intergenerational learning. Anyone interested with that one? Please, go ahead, Nikita.
Yeah, so very recently I took my students to the AKU Climate School, and we were at the foothills of Mount Meru, trying to understand the biodiversity there and the changes there. And we got a chance to speak to a Maasai warrior, and that Maasai warrior is one from his family who got a chance to learn and go to school and college and bring back the knowledge, but is in constant fight with the development that he's seeing around his community and near the foothills of Mount Meru. With our interactions with him, we were able to understand that back in their times, if they had to learn something, they would only follow where the eagle is flying. And they would take the entire tribe and lead that path and keep on wandering, and they would find food and water for themselves. He was so apt with his knowledge that he would look at the clouds surrounding Mount Meru and let us know within how many minutes it's going to rain and how fast we should run back to our tents. So that indigenous wisdom that passes on, I think that's the best resource for us to learn. Yes, there are limitations to resources. Yes, there's a limit to the funding that we are receiving, but it should not limit us to pick up from what is available. So even in, like, I come from India. Back in India, my grandmom would practice few things that while growing up, I would never relate to. Why is she making us do things like this? But those simple practices that has been like, a course of living life, if we start adapting to those, they have their scientific reasons, and it will just make our education journey easier.
Thank you very much, Nikita. Very inspiring. There is so much resources all around us and inside us that we can use. Brian.
Yes, I'm really glad that the issue of intergenerational learning, intergenerational communication has been raised. We think it's a very essential part of what we're trying to do. I mean, ultimately, the scientists, the engineers know about all the challenges, and they know many of the solutions. The biggest single issue really is mobilizing communities, mobilizing society. And certainly in Ireland, we've seen over the past decade in particular, in terms of major social transformations, intergenerational communication, intergenerational learning was central to that. So it links back to the question Michael Winter posed earlier in terms of mobilizing the student voice. And certainly part of our concept would be mobilizing students in terms of that social and societal engagement, and particularly across the generation. So I think it's an excellent point and something that we have to pay more attention to. Just when I'm on, can I just revert back to the eco-anxiety piece? I absolutely agree that in terms of education of young people, that addressing this in terms of fear is absolutely the wrong thing. But on the other hand, we have to realize that there are, for adults, for people making policies, there are reasons to be anxious. This is about urgency. And if you talk to Antonio Guterres, if you talk to Mary Robinson, chair of the elders, their major message is, we don't have that much time. This is about urgency. So it's about getting the balance right here, but it would be wrong to get complacent about things because we're trying to avoid eco-anxiety for young people. So it's getting that balance right, I think, is a crucial message.
Thank you very much, Brian. More people. Runa, please.
Yes, just very shortly, briefly, I will. Intergenerational is also depending on the country. For example, there are countries which are like this in population growth, countries like this in population growth. And I think the critical thing is to ensure that when populations are like this, the critical growth, really, the intergenerational gaps are filled. Countries which are like this, like in Bangladesh, I mean, 65% are below 35. Or 70% are below 35, anything we do has to be with youth. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So I think we need to also, work in more countries. Some countries we have to work a lot more in bridging this, because the older generation knows everything, and in some countries you can't do without the youth. So just to a little thought.
Thanks very much. Eric, you wanted to add something?
Yes, on the intergenerational, I think it's really important, and something we're looking at in developing in several countries is having higher education students come and assist the teacher in the classroom for primary and secondary school on specific projects. It can be science students, it can be other topics, and we believe this is really a win-win scheme where many students want to get engaged, do something for this challenge we're facing, and teachers need assistance in some cases in developing a project. Now we have to be careful that the student or the scientist doesn't take over the classroom. The pedagogy remains in the hands of the teacher. So this is where we need that professional development of teachers so they can bring in help. But that's so. And finally, just to continue the discussion with Brian, as a climate scientist, I'm more and more convinced that even for adults, the fear project is backfiring. I think now we're past that, and you cannot lead to action by fear. There's so much example that you can raise the attention. I think the attention has been raised, but now it's how do we project collectively in something desirable. I think it's with that energy you move mountains, and I think that a lot of the frustration, the anxiety, and I must say when I hear Antonio Guterres, I feel he's going way too far. Now maybe he wants to get the attention of some people he thinks have not. But I think we're on the verge of it was useful up to a point, but now it's backfiring. And the examples of those planetary boundaries you mentioned, there's no the scientific basis for those planetary boundaries is very thin. It's a narrative, and as a climate scientist, I can tell you there's no global tipping point on climate. Every ton we emit has an impact, and the 1.5 or 2 degree are geopolitical thresholds. They're not geophysical. And I can see how some scientists wanted to raise the attention by having a little bit of a fear project. But I think now we have to be careful not to continue in this direction, because I think we're past that time. It had its effect, and clearly entering that via education completely changes my perspective as a climate scientist in the outside world on this. But anyway,
thank you very much. Anyway. Thank you very much, Eric, for that. It reminds me of a quote of Rob Hopkins, and that is, eco-anxiety is a luxury that we cannot afford, right? On that very topic. I just need one point of logistics. We are it's 12:18 and we don't have until 30, we have until 26, because here we have to change people, mic, etc., because the next session starts exactly at 12:30. So we have less than 10 minutes, and so in that we have actually, yes, we have 8 minutes left. So you remember that you will be closing with 1 minute each, if you want, to say something about what you feel is the most important. So in that context, Nikita, I suggest we move on to one last topic which has not been addressed, which is also in the questions, which I find quite interesting. And so the question is, are there examples in education or experimental education to abolish grading system that continue to replicate competition? And we can take that, so examples is the question, and we can take that in a little bit broader context of how do we go from competition to cooperation in the systems that is currently, unfortunately, shaping all of the youth. I don't know if anyone is interested in picking on that one. So before,
we do have a system. We do have a system in school. And yes, our school follows a curriculum where the students have to be graded, but a compulsory part of the education is engaging them into creativity, activity, and service. all our service elements right now, because the theme is sustainability for the school this year, we are focusing only on that. And it's good to see that we have learners who do not want to engage in one-day events, who reject the idea of screaming for one day about a topic, about making a change, but actually not practicing it. So we have changed our event systems into having programs or projects that are going to create a legacy, where these learners are a part of the legacy and they leave that behind for the upcoming batches to continue. So the project is not dying down with the batch that graduates each year from school. And along with this, we have made it also compulsory for our students to engage with the local community, with government schools, whatever resources they have, because mine is a private school. So to get the funding is a little easier, as we get funding from Al Khan Foundation too. So we should not be selfish enough to only keep that funding to ourselves and try projects inside the school. We extend them to the government schools nearby, where we see peer-to-peer engagement, learning happening, exchange of a lot of good ideas happening, and we also involve our parent community. We did a very small experiment where we wanted to provide food for our earthworms to create our soil factory. In a span of a week, we saw every child of the school eating one fruit each day to contribute their fruit waste to the food of earthworms. So from being Miss Nikita leading the project, I became Mama Earthworm for them, because I would look around for fruit waste to go and feed the earthworms. So I think if we change the way we want to run programs in the school, we can actually do away with the grading scale that we keep, putting them into different categories.
Thank you.
I
Thank
hope
you
that
very
helped.
much. Thank you very much, Nikita. So I can add, before we all go for the last minute, I can add one more example from Singapore. I think that's the best example I can think of on that very topic, because they are ranked like #1 in PISA almost on all categories. They are really on top front runners, and yet in their last plan, they decided to remove the grading systems for the kids, because they realized that it was providing so much anxiety. It was so harsh that they said this is not the system that is working, because we have a youth that is that is so anxious. So I think that's a very good example of how even if you want to be very competitive, at some point you realize that what is the most important is actually a healthy population with healthy people. So I think that's a very positive note. So I would like to give now the floor to all of you for a last 1 minute round before we close. Juan, if you want to start.
Yes, thank you very much. So as for the next steps, I think for us in 2023, it was about renewing the year to renew political commitments and also create this partnership for collaboration. So the ground is set. And now from 2024, it's about establishing a common language. So understanding where we are, but also setting common target, where we want to go, and then how do we go from this point to that point. So in that regard, I think in these guidances that we have shared would be the basis for establishing that common language. And then the action part is much needed. And for that, I just want to point out that in terms of the common language, for example, at COP28, for the first time, we have this wording, transition away from fossil fuels. But as Eric was sharing, instead of to move away from this peer discussion and approach, we need to know what is desirable. And for example, in the curriculum guidance, there's that whole section about post-carbon green economies, and what do we mean by that, and how do we get there? So these kind of concrete ideas need to be developed further. And also, I would call upon all the experts here today to look into the different aspects of this curriculum guidance and see which aspects would have a fundamental lacking in terms of resources to support teachers. Because, for example, have we ever taught about post-carbon green economies to 10-year-olds? Ever? So there are these areas that have a big gaps, and we hope that we can collectively work to fill this gap so that we can do the stock taking at COP30 in Brazil. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Juan. I asked, so I will give the floor to Runa because she has to leave, and we are closing in 3 minutes. So please, everyone, be short.
For me, education is so important, and because of that, I think, humane, to become a human being, which means respect all around, to have humane traits embedded into the learning process is compulsory in today's world. And somehow or the other, I am talking, to learning planning, and you know very well, Gail, how important this is to you, your institution, which is absolutely going into this kind of an education. Human peace, becoming a human being first, ensuring citizenship, then education, because education is not the same anymore. It's all in your fingertips. So the whole methodology needs to be changed, and it will not happen easily because countries are not going to agree to it. The societies will not agree to it. But I think for all of us, and especially those who have who are showing paving ways, UNESCO, for example. I mean, for you all, it's so important that you create that safe haven of having education, which is beyond just education, because that is how inter-respect can come in, and with respect, planetary saving can also come in, saving the planet.
Thank you so much, Runa. I know that you have to leave. Thank you again for being with us. Nikita?
Well, my ask today will be very short and sweet in one line. We appreciate the funds we receive. They should keep coming in so that we can keep running the projects. But I would love to have my teachers being more empowered because we need to learn how to sustain whatever is coming to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikita. Brian? Oh, Eric, sorry.
Thanks, Kate.
Whoever.
Go ahead, Brian.
Thanks, Eric. I won't comment back on your comment on climate science. So I'll thank you, everybody, for a very positive conversation. I think I'll go back to reiterate our message, and that is that the whole education system can play a very effective role in terms of being a global catalyst for societal transformation and societal mobilization. Very strongly advocate the concept of planetary health and that intersection and intertwining of human health and health of the planet itself. For us, we are going to work with governments and other partners to translate this into action as soon as possible. So partnership and funding are the key elements for us, and certainly any of our panelists today or anybody in the audience, we're very happy to work with partners, and a number of approached me through the chat already to advance this as soon as possible. I think we all have a responsibility here, but it's been hugely reassuring to hear of the engagement from so many sectors and organizations like UNESCO and OCE, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Eric?
Yes, just to finish really quickly, I think it's very exciting times for quality climate change education. We've heard a lot of amazing testimonies here. The inclusivity and the very broad perspective that the Greening Education Partnership is taking, I think, is very promising. It's a very motivating development that gathers all of us in a common endeavor. We have to listen to the teachers. We have to listen to the youth. The central role of science education is absolutely key. And again, going from that anxiety to agency requires those new narratives and a discussion on values. What world do we want to live in? And I think that as a few of you have been saying, this is a shared ethical responsibility that scientists and educators have, and it requires political and institutional leadership for success. So we need to talk to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. So this is, unfortunately, we have to close now. So this is just to tell you how inspiring I found this session, and also how frustrating I found this session, because now I would love to have a full conversation with all of you guys and with the audience. You know, that I missed that crowd, and also see with the number of questions that is still pending that we would need a lot more time to address those. So thank you again for being with us, and the festival is on. Go to the Learning Planet Festival and look for other sessions that will be, I hope, as inspiring. So I'm very happy to have all of you, and safe journey for the ones that are traveling, and see you soon on other occasions. Bye.